Now, let's turn to Donald Trump and the trial. As I mentioned at the start of the show, this is day 2 of jury deliberations. I believe reporting right before we came on air indicated that the jury was trying to hear some testimony again. Now, before the jury deliberated, the judge gave instructions to the jury, as the judge does. But as soon as the judge did that, Trump, apparently within minutes, went on Truth Social and, of course, is crying foul. It is ridiculous, unconstitutional, and un-American that the highly conflicted radical left judge is not requiring a unanimous decision on the fake charges against me brought by Soros-backed DA Alvin Bragg. It's like, you see just the contours of great replacement theory right there. Soros, Jewish, backed a black guy, right? In the same way that they never attribute agency to black people or Latino people because it must be the Jews controlling
puppet master, not a Jewish puppet, but just a puppet master.
Right. Don't worry. I'm against anti-Semitism. A third world election interference hoax, he says. Trump concludes that post. So that was right after the jury gave these instructions. And you saw every Republican candidate kind of follow suit after this. Or not candidate, I should say. Politician. Marco Rubio was like, this is disgusting what the judge did. And then last night, Senator Ted Cruz went on Sean Hannity's show to express consternation about these jury deliberation instructions. We'll give you the real facts of the situation after we hear him.
Happening with Jonathan Turley is exactly right. We now know to a virtual certainty that no conviction will be upheld on appeal, that the judge today committed, I think, clear reversible error. These jury instructions were nonsense. Now, here's the bad news. The bad news is this has been a kangaroo court from the beginning. This is a wildly partisan prosecutor who hates Donald Trump, who came with a political objective of going after Donald Trump. And we now know from these jury instructions that this judge is every bit the partisan that the prosecutor is. And he knows this is reversible error. As you noted, Ramos versus Louisiana clearly held in 2020 that every element of the crime must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, must be unanimous by the jury, and yet this judge says it doesn't matter, not in New York. The Constitution does not apply in New York, which means if we get a conviction, it will be reversed on appeal. But the judge doesn't care. The prosecutor doesn't care. Nobody cares because this is not about law. This is not about criminal justice. This is about politics. This is all about the press conference, the national address that Joe Biden has scheduled to give from the White House, where he gloats, we've now convicted Donald Trump. This is all about November. We are watching election interference. This is the most blatant case of election interference that we've ever seen in our country's history.
But everything seems to backfire. And if you look, for example, and I've heard different takes on the issue of the questions that the jury are asking, and there'll be a readback tomorrow. But I've got to wonder, could those questions be rooted in disagreement in that, jury room?
Look, Sean, I'm holding out hope. I got to say, I believe in our justice system. I believe in our Constitution. I believe in the rule of law.
I don't believe in this system. Senator, I said at the beginning, he can't get a fair trial in New York. Mar-a-Lago's not $18 million either. And I stand by it, and he didn't get a fair trial in New York, regardless of what the outcome is.
Yep.
That's a fact.
No, this judge is partisan and wildly unfair. The previous judge was partisan and wildly unfair.
Okay.
My hope is the best outcome is that the jury acquits, that there's some common sense that comes through. Now, as you noted, this jury pool is wildly Democratic, so they're gambling that they have partisans on that jury who don't care about the facts and law. And by the way, the judge gave them such a biased view of the law that they can have 12 different theories of the crime and convict. That will be reversed. But even so, even if they don't acquit, one juror can stand up and say, I will not be part of this travesty of justice. I hope and pray that happens. That would be good for the country if they ended this ridiculous charade and they let the voters decide in November.
All right.
I agree. Well said,
Thank you
Senator.
so much.
Appreciate you being with us.
Ted Cruz, for that advocacy for jury nullification, which definitely is not politicizing the process whatsoever, as he accuses all the Democrats, and we know what that means, in an urban space like New York. They're going to be the ones that are biased in this instance. So what they're basically claiming here, and what Trump is claiming, and all of the Republicans just followed suit with his Truth Social post that came off the cuff as the jury began to deliberate after these instructions were handed down. No, the judge is not saying that let's rip up the Constitution in this case. For a felony charge, you don't need unanimous consent on the conviction. That is absolutely not what the judge said, because if that were the case, yes, that would be highly unusual and illegal for the judge to make that determination basically on the fly to the jury before they were set to make deliberate and figure out the facts of this case. What the judge actually said to them in thorough instructions was, because the prosecution in this case made the misdemeanor a felony in this instance, when it came to falsifying business records, they made it a felony by bumping it up to say the intent with this falsifying of records was to commit another crime, which was the federal crime of election interference. Because that was the way that the prosecution's case was constructed, the judge made the case to the jury and said, you don't necessarily need to agree on these 34 counts on the way that that Trump concealed or obfuscated or used this kind of fraudulent bookkeeping or changing of wording. You don't need to agree on every specific charge on the mechanism with which he did that. You just have to agree with the overarching charge of that he was basically that they were trying to violate the election law through this fraudulent activity. They made this case here in USA Today. Basically, the prosecutors have alleged Trump falsified the records in order to interfere with the 2016 presidential election using unlawful means. They've alleged Trump used 3 different unlawful means. 1, violating federal campaign finance laws through hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels. 2, falsifying yet another business record under New York law, such as bank records tied to former Trump fixer Michael Cohen's payment to Stormy Daniels' lawyer. And 3, violating New York tax laws. Jurors must agree Trump used some unlawful means to interfere in the election, according to Merchan, the judge, but they don't need to agree on which means it was. This is the quote from the instructions. Although you must conclude unanimously that the defendant conspired to promote or prevent the election of any person to public office by unlawful means, you need not be unanimous as to what those unlawful means were, Merchan instructed. But does the verdict need to be unanimous? Yes, Merchan clearly stated. Your verdict on each count you consider, whether guilty or not guilty, must be unanimous. That is, each and every juror must agree to it, he said. But they're claiming that it was the second part in which Merchan, the judge, was saying that the jurors did not have to be unanimous. Yeah, that would be a pretty massive story if that were the case. But they know this is it. I mean, they know that they're lying about this. They know that they're lying about the mechanics of it because it's going to make people confused, and that's their primary objective. So we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe there we go. This is also amazing. So if you guys recall, now that we get to see Ted Cruz just suck up to Trump on a nightly basis or daily basis, apparently. You'll recall that the National Enquirer ran that story about Ted Cruz's father being linked to the JFK assassination, which was false. And David Pecker, Trump's guy at the National Enquirer, was just testifying in this very case that Trump and him were working in cahoots to do catch and kill schemes, but also plant stories like this one. So even with all of that backstory, Ted Cruz still gets all agitated on air on Hannity to protect the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.